Okay, looks like I have an explicit detail question, usually based on the text, according to the text. We got to figure out exactly what's the condition. What can be concluded about the diminishing popularity of the portrait miniature in the 19th century? So let's read the text. A common assumption among art historians is that the invention of photography in the mid-19th century displaced the painted portrait in the public consciousness. So photography replaced a portrait. Okay, the diminishing popularity of the portrait miniature, which coincided with the rise of photography, seems to support this claim. So actually we have some evidence supporting that photography replaced the portrait. This was given the declining miniature portrait. However, photography's impact on the portrait miniature may be overstated. Okay, so what's going on? Really, photography did not get rid of the portrait miniature. Although, contrasting transition, records from art exhibitions in the Netherlands from 1820 to 1892 show a decrease in the number of both full-sized and miniature portraits submitted. This trend was established before the invention of photography. So this trend predated, it was before photos. So maybe photos added to it, we don't know, but there was definitely a trend in decline for the portrait miniature before the photography came into play. So A, factors other than the rise of photography may be more directly responsible for the decline. We don't know that. This is our typical false comparison. There are other factors, but more? Nothing here says more or less. Very typical wrong answer choice. I'm not going to select A. Although portrait miniatures became less common than photographs, again, do we know how many photographs and how many portrait miniatures were taken according to the text? This is again a false comparison. I don't know if there was less or more. C, the popularity of the portrait miniature likely persisted for longer than art historians have assumed. Well, I don't know what art historians have assumed. The only thing I know they've assumed is that the photo replaced the portrait miniature. So I have no idea. I hope it's D. As demand for portrait miniatures decreased, portrait artists likely shifted their creative... Whoa, we have no idea if artists shifted from painting to photos. That is just simply not in the passage. Okay, now, as occasionally I've done, I've eliminated all of them. Time to go back and start again, okay? Probably it's going to be A, but I really don't like A. So let's clear it out and take a look again. So what do we know? We do know there was some other factor at play causing the decline of portrait miniatures other than photography, because it started declining before photography. So this part is true. Factors other than the rise of photography. Maybe. Okay, they're not saying definitely, directly, more responsible. They're saying it may be more responsible for the portrait miniatures. Okay, that's fair enough. That's a very forgiving word. It may be more responsible, it may be less responsible, but there clearly is another factor that is responsible. I'll accept that. That is the right answer because the others did not at all fit. Okay, we've got a main idea question. Let's go ahead and read the text. Believing that living in an impractical space can heighten awareness and even improve health, conceptual artist Madeline and such designed an apartment building in Japan to be more fanciful than function. So fun, I'll use that as my word for synonym for impractical, not exact, but fun rather than function is what they designed. Okay, and that should improve health. So does a fun space improve health versus a practical space? I don't know. If I get hungry, I need a kitchen. So let's see. A kitchen counter is chest high on one side and knee high on the other. Okay, that's kind of weird. A ceiling has a door to nowhere. All right. The effect is disorienting, but invigorating. After 4 years, their Filmmaker such and such reported significant health benefits. Okay, but we really have no idea if those health benefits were due to the space. But nonetheless, that could be at least a single example of fun being better than function. So let's look at the answers. That is the main idea. So, although inhabiting a home surrounded by fanciful items, such as those designed by such and such, can be rejuvenating, is unsustainable. No, that's not the idea. It's nothing about unsustainability. Designing disoriented spaces like those in such and such building is the most effective way to create a physically stimulating environment. Most effective? How do we know that? There's no way. That's too extreme. That's got to be wrong. C, as a filmmaker, such and such has long supported the designs of conceptual artists. What? That is definitely not the main idea. Who supported them or didn't support them? All right, I hope it's D. Although impractical, the design of the apartment building by such and such may improve the well-being of the building's residents. Well, yeah, we had an example of one resident who had health benefits. Now, again, whether it was due to that or not, we don't know. But certainly that suggests maybe D is the correct answer. This is the right idea for the main idea. Okay, Utah is, well, what do we have here? We've got according to the text. Okay, so I need the explicit details explaining why ecologists worried about Pondo, whatever Pondo is. Okay, Utah is home to Pondo. Now they're going to tell us. A colony of about 47,000 quaking aspen trees that all share a single root system. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Pondo is one of the largest single organisms by mass on Earth. But ecologists are worried. Why are they worried? That its growth is declining in part because of grazing by animals. So that's it. They're worried about Pondo because of the grazing of animals causing a decline in growth. Okay? If the ecologists say, well, the ecologists do say that strong fences could prevent deer from eating young trees and help Pondo start thriving again. Okay, so our answer should be the ecologists are worried that Pondo is going to continue declining because of grazing by animals. It isn't growing at the same rate it used to. Well, it's declining. It's not even growing now. So this could be correct. Let's read the others, though. It isn't producing young trees. We don't know that. That actually is not in the text. Okay. It says some of the young trees are getting eaten by deer, but that it's not producing young trees, that doesn't make necessarily sense. C, it can't grow into new areas because it's blocked by fences. No, there are no fences. That was a possible solution, and that's not the problem. Its root system can't support many more trees. No, we don't know that either. It's just simply it isn't growing at the rate it used to. It used to be growing. It is big. Now it's declining. Okay, we've got a main idea question, so let's read the whole text. Biologists have predicted that birds' feather structures vary with habitat temperature, but this hadn't been tested in mountain environments. Okay, so temperature affects the feather structure of birds. Okay, but we never tested it within a mountain. Okay, so ornithologists Saha Brarv studied feathers from 249 songbird species inhabiting different elevations and thus experiencing different temperatures at the different elevations in the Himalaya mountains. So, okay, at least they're in a certain location. He found that feathers of high elevation species not only have a greater proportion of warming downy sections to flat and smooth sections than do feathers of low elevation species, but high elevation species feathers also tend to be longer, providing a thicker layer of insulation. So the idea is that the high elevation, colder birds have basically down jackets, and it provides better insulation. So there is a change in feather structure with elevation, with habitat and temperature. Okay. So, all right, let's see which answer projects that idea. Barr's investigation shows that some species of Himalayan songbirds have evolved feathers that better regulate body temperatures. Maybe, I mean, it keeps them warmer, I guess. Then do the feathers of other, oh no, we don't know anything about other species, right? again, we get this false comparison. That's a false comparison. Very typical, very often appearing for this kind of question. Not right. Barr found an association between habit, temperature, and feather structure among Himalayan songbirds. Okay, that's true. It was really elevations, right? But elevations experience different temperatures, they tell us. So this is true. Lending new support to a general prediction. The prediction is, well, I mean, was there really a prediction? Well, that they vary with habitat, that's it, right? Not necessarily that they'd be warmer at higher elevations. This looks good. I'm going to hold on to B. Let's check C and D. Barr discovered that songbirds have adapted to their environment by growing feathers without flat and smooth sections. This is not right, okay? So the high elevation songbirds do have flat and smooth, or no, the lower elevation do. Well, one of them do. That's the important thing. And it says nothing about adapting, right? There's no, sure, they eventually had to evolve to be what they are, but the main idea of the text is not about evolution. That's not right. D, the results of Barr's study suggest that the ability of birds to withstand cold temperatures. This says nothing about the ability of birds to withstand cold temperatures. It merely says they have feathers that, provide more warming downy sections and better insulation. That is not by itself the ability of birds to withstand cold, right? It might be a factor in that, but it's not that. And then more strongly by feather length than structure. No, this is all wrong. False comparisons. There's nothing in there about that. B was our correct answer. There is an association between habitat, temperature, that is elevation, and feather structure among Himalayan songbirds, which is exactly the group that was covered in the actual experiment or test. Okay, what does the text indicate about the geologic formation at mistaken points? So this is an explicit detail where we want to know something about the geological formation of mistaken point. So let's see what that geologic formation is. Paleontologists searching for signs of ancient life have found many fossilized specimens of prehistoric human ancestors, including 7 from the Pleistocene era discovered in a geological formation in the Minetagawa quarry in Japan. However, contrasting that idea, to study the emergence of the earliest multicellular organisms to appear on Earth, okay, very different than looking for prehistoric human ancestors, researchers must turn elsewhere, okay, such as to the Ediacaran geologic formation at Mistaken Point. Okay, so what Mistaken Point is telling us, it's the place we turn for the earliest multicellular organisms, not prehistoric humans. The UNESCO World Heritage Site, the 146-acre reserve, contains more than 10,000 fossils that together document a critical moment in evolutionary history. This is a very different point in evolution that Mistaken Point is trying to depict. So let's take a look. A, it holds a greater number of fossils, but from a smaller variety of species. No, we don't know anything about that. Again, a false comparison. So often on this type of question, just be looking out for it. Point where you might say any comparison is a wrong answer, but that's not true. Don't go that way either. B, it has provided evidence that the earliest human species may have emerged. No, it's not about human species. Again, this Mistaken Point tells us about early multicellular organisms, not humans. It is widely considered by paleontologists to be the most valuable source of information about prehistoric life forms. Well, early multicellular is prehistoric, but it's way, way, way prehistoric. Even humans, early humans is prehistoric. So I'm not sure that's going to be right, actually. We need to be more specific than that. So D, it contains specimens from an older time period than those found in the formation at Minetagawa. That's true, right? That's just true. There's not a lot of extra information or detail there. All we know is Mistaken Point uses multicellular organisms, which came in the evolutionary cycle well before humans, even prehistoric humans. Therefore, it contains an older time period than at the other site in Japan indicated in the text. D is correct.